So it's 25 years, is it, since?
Yep, 11 o'clock, June the 8th, 1985.
Has life changed much in the last 25 years?
Yeah.
You're twice as old
25
for
years
a
older for a start. Yeah, hugely. Yeah, it's been fantastic.
We were just talking about the fact that people often ask you if you think life was better because you'd had your accident, and I suppose unsurprisingly you said no, it was just different. But you definitely wouldn't have had the life course that you had now if you hadn't had your accident and written Touching the Void.
No. It's hypothetical. It's one of those hypothetical questions that is nearly impossible to answer because I have no idea. You see, at the time, I just wanted to climb all over the world, which is what I was doing, which is what I love doing, so couldn't get much better than that, really. And when I smashed myself up, and before I'd written the book, that was pretty much over. I mean, that's what I was being told. Being told my knee was so bad that I'd never climb properly again, all that. But I had no plans for a career, so I had no idea what I was going to do. So to some extent, it changed my life enormously for the better, and then I ended up being able not just to do even more climbing, but make a living and whatever. But I had no idea, if it hadn't happened, whether I might have gone on and done much better climbing. I mean, you don't really know what it's going to be. Well, what I can say is it's been a wonderful life, really. It's been fantastic, you know. Yeah, I don't think it would necessarily have been worse, but yeah, no. A lot of things have changed, but it's difficult to say exactly how.
And how did you get into writing, becoming an author, writing books and writing Touching the Void?
Well, Void came about because, well, partly because when Simon and I got home, I came to Sheffield and I was pretty badly smashed up, and I just thought we'd had an accident in the hills, really. It sounds a bit odd, but to some extent it was no big deal because no one died. You know, I mean, there have been a lot of trips with friends on where people haven't come back, and so, you know, to some extent we had an accident, we had a bad time, we got out of it. But when we told it to friends of ours, they were pretty amazed by the story. You know, they were going, bloody hell, and it was having an effect on them. They were going, Jesus, you know. And then the story did go around the climbing world, you know, and as ever, everybody had an opinion about it. And as is odd human thing, we always have to blame someone, and they sort of pretty much blamed Simon, which was totally wrong, completely unfair. So I thought, well, I'll write this story to get it right, because I mean, it's like Chinese whisper. Somebody, you know, tells someone a story, it goes around 10, 20, 30, 40, 60 people, comes back to you. There's nothing you recognise in this story except for maybe breaking your leg or cutting the road. Everything else is all, because people, it's just conjecture. So part of it, I only wrote it because I thought I'd write the story down accurately, and it's dedicated to Simon, thanking him for saving my life and all that, and it corrected all this crap, basically. But inadvertently, I discovered I could write, and I discovered I quite enjoyed the process. I found it as challenging and as scary as climbing. Having said that, I didn't write again for another 4 years because I got so alarmed by the success of Touching the Void. You know, I just thought I'd written a little climbing book that climbers would read, and it just started taking off and it won all sorts of awards that were completely out of the climbing world, and it actually frightened me. And then I decided, well, let's see if I can write. And I wrote a novel called Water People, and off I went. So, and I would never have done that if that accident hadn't happened. I'm very aware of that. So.
And Touching the Void, is that the best book you think you've written?
No, but I would say that, wouldn't I? I mean, it's very difficult, you see. I mean, it's the most popular book I've written, and it's obviously a very powerful story, and it does affect a lot of people, strangely, in a way that it doesn't affect me, you know, because people take the story and apply it to themselves in many ways. And I've had letters from all sorts of people who've thanked me for helping them get through, you know, some terrible personal situation they've been in, or some desperate sickness or desperate illness, and said thank you for, you know, giving me the strength to fight through this. And I always thought, what the hell are you talking about? You know, I haven't done anything at all. You've got that in you anyway. That's what you've just done. But people have sort of hijacked the story for themselves, and so it's quite strange, really. In sense of, if you were going to say purely in terms of book sales and literary awards, well, yeah, I suppose it would be. But I don't think so. I think my favourite book used to be This Game of Ghosts. And actually my favourite now really is The Beckoning Silence. But it's a close thing between the two, actually. I thought This Game of Ghosts was a much more difficult book to write than Touching the Void. It was, you know, Touching the Void was almost like a stream of consciousness. It just came out 7 weeks for it, what happened. Whereas This Game of Ghosts is trying to say something about climbing, about why we did it, and about why you were going to accept a death toll of one friend a year and still do it, and it was a mixture of philosophy and adventure and this and that. So from my point of view, I thought that was a better book. But I don't think the author should be asked that question, really. I'm not supposed to read them, right?
Yeah. Very true. And you've just come back from Nepal after 10 years away from mountaineering. You got back into it. What made you dig out all of your equipment and?
It was an operation I had on my ankle, actually. In '85 in Peru, I smashed my knee very badly, a typical plateau fracture, and I broke the ankle. But then 5 years later, in '91, early '91, I absolutely destroyed my left ankle in a big fall on a mountain called Pachermo in Nepal. And ever since then, the ankle's been degrading, and I carried on climbing for about 15 years, and it was just getting more and more painful. You know, in the end, it was like walking around on a broken wine glass, and the fun of climbing was being ruined by the pain in the ankle. And actually, when I was filming on the Eiger for The Beckoning Silence, I felt something snap in my ankle, and I knew something had snapped, and we carried on filming. When I got home, it was x-rayed, and it was an awful long delay because the first radiographer didn't notice what was wrong. But eventually this specialist saw it, and a large thumbnail piece had snapped off. This was a year later, it had been around, and then he saw the ankle, and he said it was in a terrible state. And he did this operation, which involved chopping away lots of bone growth and removing scar tissue, whatever. Anyway, it was like that. All 17 years of pain just went completely. And at exactly the same time as I was recovering from the operation, my friend Ray Delaney rang up and said, look, I've seen this new route on Mira, which is a trekking peak, in the 21,000 foot trekking peak. He said, should we go and do it at the last crack? And we meant to go and do it as a last climb, not you know, restarting the climbing career. And I thought, yeah, I'd really like to do it because it doesn't hurt. For the first time in years and years, I can go and do something that doesn't hurt. And but I never intended to climb after that because I would just damage the ankle again. I mean, the doctor said, oh, you should give me 5, maybe 10 years. And so, and I have to be careful because if the ankle collapses, then my opposite knee will get stressed and my knee will. So anyway, so that's why I ended up going there. And but as you say, it was 10 years. It was longer. It was 96 was when I'd last been in the Himalayas. I'd done ice climbing and stuff in the French Alps and a bit of rock climbing, but I'd pretty much been retired. So I was pretty worried about how fit I was, because you have a sort of residual fitness, and when you climb all the time, you retain a residual fitness. I thought I'd lost it all, so that was why I decided to go again.